Hi, it's Paul from Heritage. We're just at a Heatmiser job now at the minute, or a heating system job anyway. So I'm just going to show you around what we've got, and then I'm going to start getting into it and try and find out what's going on. Because it seems like a overcomplicated system for the size of the house really. So what we're going to be doing here is the customer's got some electric underfloor heating. So they've got like a hot tub building outside which has got an electric underfloor heating starting there, and then two bathrooms that have got electric underfloor heating in there, and then they've got wet underfloor heating on the ground floor. Then they've got a radiator circuit upstairs, and they want to tie all that in to one Heatmiser system, or one, not Heatmiser particular, that's just what we install, but tie it all into one system so it all works together. And then also there's control of that over the one app that can control everything. I'll have a look around, see what they've got, and try and make some sense of what's here. So we've got that is a huge water tank, that for this size of house. It's like your standard whatever 200 and odd litres sort of height, but it's a lot wider than that. So yeah, I'm not sure what litre capacity this, but it's very big. So this water cylinder cupboard, and the controls in here are quite good. You know, there's plenty of it. There's lots of pumps, lots of zone valves, everything's labelled up. You know, it's very rare that this is done. There's zone valves up there. They say like boiler on. I don't know what they are though. Just says boiler on. So all that pipe work's fairly organised, no leaks, no corrosion of pipes, everything's labelled up as it should be. So this is quite a nice job that somebody's done here, which we say it's very rare that we see that. So this is the underfloor heating manifold. So that's the pump for that. So this here that we've just shown you then, you need each one of these zones to be controlled separately for it to work efficiently. You know, kitchen, hallway, lounge, whatever you've got. So what this guy was going to come and do, because they haven't managed to get anybody out here for quite a long time to be able to dismantle this, understand it, and get it working properly. So this hasn't been working properly since it was installed, which we find that a lot, that it's working as in they've got hot water, but there's always a problem with the underfloor heating and the radiator circuits. Like, they need to run at completely different times, so it's all just on one programmer that comes on and off. So in here it says in the board, in the UH8 programmer, so I'm assuming it's this, but I don't actually know because that's not even on. So I don't know how that can be doing anything, because it's not got any, it's not even on doing anything. I assume that was their hot contactor there saying hot tub contactor. I assume that was operating the hot tub contactor, and then you can put a time on, you know, when you want the hot tub to be on and stuff. So I assumed that was that, but I'm yet to find out what that is. So yeah, what they were going to, so say for example that is the programmer, that brings the heating and the hot water on. The hot water is normally fine most of the time. But then that brings all this on, and the heaters tower and the radiators upstairs, and this needs to run a lot longer than the radiators. So people say it's patchy, the floor, the heat's patchy. So that may be because the pipe work has been laid poorly, or that may be the construction of the floor, what material you've got on the floor, whether it's a good conductor of heat or not. And also it could be that the underfloor heating pipes aren't being allowed to be on for the time that they need to be. So you might find that it's semi-heating the floor, and that's why it feels patchy. Bearing in mind it's got to get through concrete or screed or whatever. It's got to heat the material that it's immersed in. So the pipework's got to heat all that cold concrete screed up first, then it transfers it like quite evenly. But if it's just, that's why it may feel patchy, because it's not getting full chance to heat all the floor up, all the floor material that it needs to. So a lot of it, we very rarely find that the pipe work in the floor is a problem. It's always to do with the control and the time period that it's allowed to be on. So let's have a look up here now. So you've got lots of isolators and things up here. That's for like an electric shower, that, and my unit, they're really good. So you just got a little digital battery display upstairs, and that's does the valves, so that's cool. So you've got all this stuff here, so it's very overcomplicated if someone comes and looks at it. But so you got underfloor heating top pump. I don't know what that is. Underfloor heating bottom pump. So normally there's just one pump for underfloor heating, so I need to check that out. Upstairs heating pump, so that's just to aid the flow of water upstairs to the radiators, I'm assuming. Underfloor heating main bathroom, so that's the electric supply to the electric underfloor heating. Electric toilet, so that's its actual physically electric toilet in there, like a what do you call it, bidet sort of wash thing. Motorised lid on it, heated seat. Underfloor heating ensuite, so again that's another electric underfloor, so we need this electric underfloor heating here and this electric underfloor heating here. We're going to be adding this onto the Heatmiser system, so it shows up on the app as a part of the whole heating system. Boiler isolator, which isolates this, which therefore isolates the boiler down there. And then in here there's a lot more wiring in here than what would usually find. So there's some cables going out of zone 5 into this relay board controlling these contactors, and it says on it programmer. I think we've got a cable here that says program on it, yeah. So we've got a programmer cable there. So I don't know if that's that programmer or it's another one around the house we can't find somewhere that's hidden. So we need to take that programmer out of the situation, because that programmer is potentially bottlenecking any control here. We need this system to be completely separate and not controlled by anything else, because we want this to work independently. Then we need to put separate hot water controller on as well. So we're going to get rid of this programmer and we're going to put the hot water cylinder on its own programmer, so it will fire the boiler up and will be visible on the app as well, and it won't cross over with this. It doesn't need a separate programmer, it is its own programmer, so if you like. So we're going to put a hot water programmer separate to the system. Then we're going to use this UH8 to control all the underfloor heating that's currently in, and then also try to use this to control the radiator circuit upstairs as well. So yeah, I'm just going to dismantle all this and see where it goes and try and make some sense of it. So at the minute these are all popped off what the previous plumber's been and done to try and just get the system working. What we're going to do now is, yeah, I'll put them back on. I'll have one circuit open and then we'll have the boiler fired up, heat it up. Then I'm going to use the thermal imaging gun, and I can see which room, make sure the pipes, because at the minute the pipes just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on. I don't know what that is, so they're not labelled up very well. So we need to find out where them pipes go, make sure they're heating the floor evenly, and then we can see that with the thermal imaging camera. So I'm going to do that whilst I'm doing other stuff as well. And what the other plumber was going to do that hasn't come, he was going to put a Nest system on and then control all them 5 underfloor heating loops with one Nest system. So that would be one thermostat in one of the rooms, and then he would control all the heating on the ground floor. But that won't work efficiently because some of the rooms are bigger than others, so you'll find that one room gets the temperature that's got the thermostat in, and then it'll turn all the rest of the underfloor heating off. Each underfloor heating loop needs to have its own independent control, so it comes on and off as it needs to, as and when it needs to. Again, otherwise it's not efficient, and you're going to get patchy floors and etc. So that wouldn't have worked what that guy was going to do. There's a few issues we've found here. So the boiler one, I've just pulled that out, and then the earths have just pulled straight out of there. So that's a bad job. There's holes in the boxes. I'd use deeper boxes in this, but you see all these cables are just crushed in, just untidy, asking for pulling out when you take them out. So that's the boiler supply one I've took off. And then this, yeah, there's 2 pumps on the underfloor heating, manifold pump and then a circulation pump as well. So that's what these are. Upstairs heating pump, so that's another pump as well. So we need all these pumps. They don't need to be going through all these isolators. It's a bit unnecessary, really. We normally have the whole system controlled off one, like 5 amp supply and an FCU, the boiler, all the pumps, the valves, everything. So it's a bit overkill. This, you got a 13 amp supply for like every pump. So it's way over complicated, this, and actually the control of it doesn't work well. So it's over complicated and then also doesn't work well. So it just seems like this was more of a domestic electrician. Just this sort of thing here looks more like a domestic electrician's job of trying to sort this heating control out, and it's fallen down. It's the way it's functioning. So I'm probably going to remove a lot of this that's unnecessary. Another thing as well, so you know, this all looks very neat and organised, but we've got a very budget board. Like, this is the most problematic stuff that we find with like electrical accessories failing, is this brand. So you know, it's all this like huge job done. They've got like solar panels and battery storage and all this massive like heating control system and everything, and then you've just got this crap. What a disappointment. I expected to open this up and it to be something nice, nice equipment, but it's not. It's just the worst stuff, and nothing's labelled up as well, so I can't just like flick off whichever isolator up there I want because nothing's labelled up. So the people who are in the house at the minute, I'm gonna have to say, look, I'm gonna have to turn circuits off. I'm gonna be turning your TVs and everything off around the house because I don't know what's going on here. So this, I would say, needs a condition report because I don't like the way it's organised and the poor stuff I've seen so far. But anyway, so that's another problem we've come across, is trying to find out what's what and nothing's labelled up. Okay, this is where I'm at so far. So after looking at this cylinder, it's like a multi-storage cylinder designed for use with stoves. So yeah, you've got 2 temperatures there. You've got the bottom temperature and the top temperature, and then it's got lots of different inlets and outlets for you can use it for renewables, or in this case there's a stove in the kitchen, and all this pipe work there goes through to the stove and comes in here and then circulates around a section of this that is used for that specific purpose. So yeah, I'm just tracing what all these cables do. There's a couple of zone valves at the top that I've labelled that up stove because I've traced it back to the stove pipe, but that's the flow and return from the boiler. So I've got to fire this up yet, which I haven't because I've been pulling it apart, and I don't know what they're actually doing. I mean, why would you have one valve on the flow but then block the return? And then pipes seem to come round to do specifically this top bit of the stove, you know, that potentially could be heated from the stove. So that's why I've wrote stove on that. So I'm just going to have a look at that and make sure they're not preventing anything working. I'm just pulling all the wiring out now at the back because it's quite a mess. I've disconnected the stove for now because we're not here to do that, but that'd need some other additional separate control on this system if you want to add the stove to it, you know, to integrate into this whole system that we've got here. So yeah, I'm just up here now doing the wiring. So this was an old programmer, so that cable went over there to the programmer that was on the wall. So that was the programmer for the boiler. So that programmer was a time clock for which was enabling things in here in that big mess that was here before. So as you can see, I've took everything, all the cables out, took the contactor board out. Now what we're trying to identify is all these ones that say pump on them, pump, underfloor heating, pump, bottom pump, underfloor heating, top pump. They're supposed to be controlled from the heating system. So I've got the cable now, again I've simplified it, we've got the supply in, we've got the cable that goes over to the boiler, which powers the boiler, and then boiler enable switch in there. These here are all dead. So we've got cables coming in here that say heating valve and things, but I've got to pull all these out at the back and trace them back to where they come from, because there's lots of stuff here that doesn't make sense. Could potentially be preventing other things working. So for example, if this stove has been wired into this incorrectly and they want the heating on, and then the stove connections are preventing the heating coming on, closing valves and stop closing the boiler off. So there's lots of overcomplicated stuff here that we've just removed. So yeah, at the minute the next thing I've found is all these don't have any power to them. So I don't know why any of these haven't got any power to them, and seeing if they're actually doing the pumps or not, because I can't find any more relays that anything would go to switch these on. So I'm going to trace this back, this power supply, and I'm going to pull all these cables out the back there, because behind this there's a whole mess of cables behind all this, and then to see if I can trace them back to the actual pump that it says it is, and potentially remove them and wire them all back just to a joint box here, and we'll add it onto this system rather than on a separately wired FCU. Just show you what I'm doing in here. So there's the cables up there I've disconnected for the stove, and then also these zone valves here, until I find out what they're doing, what their purpose is. And then this is everything behind here. So this is out the back of the UH8, and then all these all these FCUs here doing the underfloor heating and fan for the toilet and whatever. But this is all the stuff for, yeah, all them switches. So we've just had a look at them now, and they do go back to the pumps. So these pumps and valves have had, the pumps have had no control over them. They're just, technically the way they're wired, they're just on. So, you know, these cables I'm going to pull back here now and put into here are going to need controlling by that UH8. When it calls for underfloor heating, it turns two pumps on. When it calls for hot water, you know, it opens valves, it turns pumps on. Upstairs radiators, when it calls for heat, it turns the pump on, opens the valve, fires the boiler up. It seems like all these pumps in here, upstairs, underfloor heating, were just all wired into a permanent supply and switched on. And then the actual supply to the FCU isn't on. So these pumps have just been sat here not doing anything, basically. So that's what we found in here.
Right, so we've got the hub here, which is needed in order for the stats to communicate with the app. So this is the sort of go-between. This has a Ethernet connection which goes into the router, and then it needs power as well. So usually routers, well, not all of them as in this case, but quite a lot of them have a USB port on the back, and they usually give enough power to negate the need for the plug adapter for this. In this instance the Sky router doesn't have one, so we need to plug this into a socket. Not enough sockets in here, so I'm just changing one of these single sockets for a double. So we've got enough space. We're also going to need a switch because all 4 ports on the back of this Sky router are taken up. So I've just pulled out one of the computers from upstairs just so we could set this up, but we'll need a switch so that everything can be plugged in at the same time.
So this is the gear we're using on this job. So we've got the OEs, so these are going to be for the electric underfloor heating. There's a hot tub in that room out there, that's got electric underfloor heating in it, and then the 2 bathrooms upstairs. And then we'll add this, take the old warm up stuff off and put this on, so add it onto the same system. These are some actuators. These are the NICEIC-registered, so this is what's going to be controlling the downstairs underfloor heating. So we've got kitchen, and there'll be one controlling the hallway, and then one controlling the dining room, one controlling the lounge. So that's what they're for. You've just seen the hub with Tom. That's another NICEIC. Yeah, so this is the stuff we're using for this job, and the hub in there. So in here, that's where we've got to now. So I've removed all them FCUs off the bottom, as they weren't doing anything. The pumps weren't on, there was no power to them, and even if there was power to them, the pump was on permanently. All the pumps are on permanently, so that's no good. So we've just I brought all the cables through into this joint box here that were here. So this has got pump, and then it's got motorised valves here. Then we need a power supply into here, and then I'm just going to run just some 5-core, 2-core cables to this, just so this isn't as busy, because there's not as much space in here. There's a bit more space in here to get these bulky joints out of the way. And then we'll run the system and start identifying the floor heating loops. Tom's putting all the thermostats on. What we've discovered here as well is this cylinder at no point has ever had any heating control fitted. So there's space here for cylinder stats. That's for the loops coming from the. So apparently I'm told that the cooker next door, which I'll show you in a minute, heats the lower part, and then the top part here is what the boiler heats with the immersion heater here, and this is what the boiler heats. Now whether that's right or not, I don't know, because we've not used these, we've not seen these cylinders before. But there is a position there for a cylinder stat, and there's a position at the bottom for a cylinder stat. So there should be some sort of temperature control for the cooker when that's on, and then temperature control for the boiler. So at the minute there is there's no zone valves for hot water, there is no cylinder stats at all, there's no wiring at all for this. So this could potentially boil this if there is nothing shutting any of the flow off to this. So we've got everything in place, we've got all the pumps and heating radiator valve for upstairs. We've got all the actuators controlling underfloor heating, so we've got control of them heating circuits, but no control of this circuit. So they've lived there a year now, so by default whenever the heating is on, this is getting warmed up. If they don't have the heating on, they don't have any hot water. So this needs an independent zone valve going on this. I'm assuming it doesn't need a pump. And then also cylinder stats, at least one for now for the stuff we're doing, so it can isolate the cylinder when it reaches temperature. So something reading the temperature, and then something to close a valve on the pipework to stop water flowing, and then also to shut the boiler off when the demand is done. So yeah, that's how it's been for 12 months now. So we need to get a plumber back to put the zone valves on, and then we can bring some cylinder stats back and wire this into its own. We'll put a Neo HW on this, and then you'd have control of the hot water only. So that's what we've got at the minute. Here's show you the copper. So this is the stove. So you have your fire in there, and your hobs and oven are heated from that, and then this has heat exchangers. So this has got a heat exchanger inside it, and then there's a circulation pump here. So what's supposed to happen is when this is on, it's supposed to turn the boiler off and then rely on this to heat all the hot water, all the underfloor heating and radiators. So there's no control between this and in there. There was a flex cable, but that's probably just powering the pump. But there's no temperature sensors on this to say, you know, this is getting hot, so we're going to shut the boiler off. So there should be some sort of signal from here, between here and all that equipment in there, to kind of say this is getting hot now, so we'll turn the boiler off. So there's valves and everything in place, and there was this relay board on before, but it wasn't doing any of that. So when it's like you need a switch or something, or you have to manually come in here and turn the boiler off. When you have to manually come in here and turn the boiler off when you know you've got another thing on. So the way there's valves put in place with current flowing to them when there's, you know, a heating circuit was on or something like that. But there's nothing shutting anything off when it reaches temperature, or when that gets hot, nothing shutting the boiler off in here. When this gets to temperature, nothing shutting it off here. So there was loads of convoluted controls up there, and none of it was doing anything useful. If anything, it was preventing the system working properly. And this has got actually no safety devices on it, and neither does the cooker. The only thing that it's got in here is a dump. Apparently there's a radiator upstairs what is attached to this, and then that dumps some of the heat to prevent the system, you know, boiling. So it's like a you know, like an old school tank or whatever. It's like a pressure release, whatever you call it. Like it allows any residual heat, or if it gets a bit too hot, at least it can dump some of the heat out of the radiator rather than boiling these pipes or whatever before it switches it off. So that radiator's up there for when the cooker is on, but when this is just functioning on its own, I don't think it works. It works quite the same. But like I say, this is where we're at so far anyway, so I'm going to keep going, see what else we find. I'll see if that radiator is the kind of way it releases pressure from the system without an actual cylinder stat. But yeah, keep looking. Yeah, so that's all that. So we're just running the system now and making sure, once all the thermostats are paired, now we've got the boiler firing and make sure the water's flowing and everything like that. That's good. The pressure drop, we've topped it up now. Once we get the stats connected, then we'll prove that each stat activates each relay. Make sure that it's turning the correct pump on, make sure it's opening the right valve, make sure the boiler's firing up. So we're going to do all that and then identify the floor loops after. So I'm just running it at the minute. So this is what we've fitted. So we've got one thermostat in here doing the kitchen underfloor heating loop. Then we've got one in the lounge. We've got one in here doing the dining room. Then we've got one here doing the hallway. Then we have one on the landing. Oh, wherever he's put it, upstairs somewhere. Maybe he's not put it on yet. Oh, there you go. It's not put it on yet. So this is the one that's going to go on the wall, which is doing the upstairs radiators. So which it starts switching that separate RF switch downstairs. So that's that. And then we've got electric underfloor heating. So we've got Neostat E, which is doing the electric underfloor heating in here. And then we've got Neostat E, which is doing the electric underfloor heating in this room as well. And Tom's just outside doing the Neostat E for the hot tub room. Oh, electric underfloor heating in the hot tub room as well.
Right, need a plug in here.
It's just pairing this now to the system as well. Yeah. I'm just doing a walk around video now, just seeing. There's the dog. Just seeing which areas are full. So I've opened one loop so far. That's considerably like colder in there. You can see the purple. So nothing in the hallway. There's a lounge. There we go. So you can see nice and clearly what direction the pipes are laid. And this is more of a smudge when it cools down. This is more of a smudge, where there's more of an intense heat coming from the pipe work. So we know that number one on the manifold is the dining room. And this gives us the ability to see, you know, if there's any patches missing or pipe work, it's not performing, any breaks in or anything, or uneven spacing, and people complain of patchy floors. So that's great. That's the one identified already.